welcome everyone to the podcast today. We actually have, for the first time in person, a live guest, our dear friend and client, Monique LaGrange. Yay. Round of applause. Monique is, it's been a really fun journey with her over about the last year. Where at first Monique was keeping us at a distance. What she used to say is we used to, in her mind, used to be barn cats. And now we're Siamese house cats. So we're in all the way. That's really high standards for Monique, but I don't really like being called a pussy very much. But that's she refers to us often as house cats, and that's a good thing. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Monique's journey in the last year, and we've got to partner with her to see some really cool stuff happen in her life. And so, just for high level context, if you don't know who Monique is, she is a government official that made national headlines from a very local, regional Catholic school board. And God's brought her on an amazing journey. We're going to hear all about that today. Cool.
Why don't we just start there? Welcome, Monique.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be live and in person.
We always love
my two favorite kitty cats.
We're the favorites. This is awesome.
We're the favorites.
So this is the funny thing that we find. I actually had a conversation with another client where he's like, "This is such a weird thing with you guys because we start off in a transactional relationship, right? Usually we get hired as a coach, and then we generally, for the most part, form a good friendship and relationship with our clients where it's like, oh, we actually enjoy spending time with these people. And so we're at a place of friendship now. And one of my favorite things I find Monique is her and Angela have a very similar personality. So I like making them laugh and crack because they're always so serious all the time. So I got them both at the same time. That was good. So,
double trouble.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to get to build that rapport and friendship, and we're even looking at doing some stuff together in the governmental world, which is going to be fun. We'll talk about all that today. So why don't you start off at the beginning?
Let's hear about how you made national news. Would you like to share that story?
Oh, I would love to share how I made national news.
I mean, I'm sure you could YouTube it, but it's way more fun hearing it from you.
Oh my gosh. Well, my kids say that if you Google me, I turn up as a 75-year-old woman.
That's nice.
Yeah, so they say
Pretty
that all my
accurate.
pictures are lying. But yeah, I started, I'm a mom first and foremost. And so I started just thinking, how can I get involved? And so I decided, well, why not? I have an education background. I should run for trustee. My kids are in the Catholic system. Great, I can totally get involved.
And so for those who don't know, where were you located?
Yeah, so I'm in Red Deer. So I ran for Red Deer Catholic School Board and got in. And that was in 2021. And so all this time politically, there's bubbling happening about, the gender ideology, all of this, the stuff coming to the top regarding curriculum. There's a lot of turning happening in our government with curriculum because they had just brought in a new curriculum. And so anyways, further down the road, I'm very passionate about what I believe in. I'm very passionate about protecting kids and bringing truth. And so there was a meme, and I saw this meme, and it said, brainwashing is brainwashing. On the top half, we had Nazi children from the 1940s, or they weren't Nazi children. The Nazis had them waving their flags. And then on the bottom half, we had kids in today's classroom waving the LGBTQ flags. And so it just said brainwashing is brainwashing. I'm like, oh my goodness, that is exactly what's happening. One agenda and it, versus another one. And it's the same agenda being passed down through our children. And all I did was share that meme on my stories, on my personal page.
It wasn't even a post, right?
It wasn't even a post.
Story share.
I didn't even make it.
And that was from what you said, that was a prayerful decision. It wasn't just like on a whim, hey, like you didn't just say, I'm going to do this. You kind of prayerfully considered it.
So everything I post, I'm like, Holy Spirit, is this from you? Do I post this? And I always wait for that go for it or like, nope, hold back.
She's been posting us a lot lately. That's good stuff. Awesome.
It's like, you're better than me. Sometimes I just post things because I'm in
Yeah,
reaction.
Angela's kind of like a American gunslinger. Whoosh,
Yeah.
like, and I'm like, you need to chill.
I was like that
was
more
over
in
COVID.
2020, and I lost
Yeah.
a lot of friends because I wasn't prayerfully considering. I don't know if they were friends. I lost a lot of acquaintances that didn't really, they would read the post and not know my heart. So I understand the journey of prayerfully
Yeah.
considering what's being shared.
Well, and I knew my position, right? I knew I had to prayerfully consider what I was putting on there because there were people that were reading it. When I had first gone in, I was completely attacked social media wise by, and they're just paid people, and I'll refer to them as the left, but they're just paid to cause trouble on your social media, right? And so that's all I did. And within, I don't know, the story had run probably 10 hours, and the chair of the board at that time called me and said, "You need to take this down." I looked, I'm like, well, it's not a post, it's just a story, and it's already gone. But by then, whoever it was, and I don't know who it was, they actually sent the meme to the Red Deer Advocate, and the Advocate took the story and made it into something it wasn't, and everybody got a hold of it. And I ended up on the 6 o'clock news, and
Like nationally.
nationally, it went national. It just went crazy. It was the perfect outlet for that agenda. So they wanted, and they twisted it. People said that I wanted children that were associated with the LGBTQ to be put in the gas chambers. That was where they were going with it. I was just like, what? I'm like, how could you pull that out of that meme?
And to clarify, that was never
Oh,
what you were
that
referring
was
to.
never in a million
Yeah.
years. And it actually just horrified me to think that people thought that I would say that, and to think that that was what that meant. And so anyways, it turned into a big thing. The board, so back then the board could put you on, so they put a code of conduct against me. That was the first code of conduct. There was another code of conduct after that because I did an interview with Laura Lynn Thompson, or Thompson.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget her name.
Okay.
Laura Lynn, the Laura Lynn show.
Lynn.
Yeah.
The Laura Lynn show.
So I did, and this was before anything had happened. So I didn't realize I wasn't allowed to because it hadn't happened. And so they aired it after the code of conduct, the hearing, and so that was the problem. And so apparently I had all control over that. So that's where it all started, and it's just been kind of like I opened a whole can of worms, and I was just, I thought it was interesting. It was thought-provoking. It was, hey, has anybody thought that this is where we're going down this trail? And from there, it just went crazy. So it's been a real learning experience. It's been open heart surgery in front of everybody. It's been, dealing with the insecurities that I've had. It's been, God, why did you do this? Even though he didn't do this.
Was he allowed?
You're like, I
yeah.
prayerfully considered this, and this didn't work out the way I thought it was going to work out.
Well, it took you down a hard road, but there's some cool stories along the way. So we're in 2021, and then we met in.
You met your barn cats in 2024.
So no.
Yeah, we met in 2024. So there was a few years between that. We met last year.
Because we met. I want to say September. It was just after, or November, or somewhere.
No, I think we only met last year in the spring because that was
it the spring?
Isn't that crazy? That's been only a year.
Yeah.
So there was a few years in between. You're not a trustee. Like you're not allowed to be.
Well, so
There were
I was
sanctions against you.
disqualified from the board. So my own board was able to act as jury and disqualify me.
That's called a kangaroo court.
Yeah.
We want to understand.
And so, but since then.
Well, let's get into that in a minute because there was
Okay.
a few things that happened over from 2021 to 2020 4 and 5. Really, 5 is when everything's happened. 2025. But what was that process like for you? You know, being nationally ostracized, and now you know how you were treated, even with at your kids' school and within your community and all that
And
kind
your
of stuff. Would you
family.
take us into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, initially, I just went into hiding, and my friends at the time. So I was going to Frontline Church in Sylvan Lake. I still go to Frontline Church in Sylvan Lake, and they actually had to come and pull me out of my house because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never leaving again. I feel like everybody's looking at me, and it was so isolating. And there was an incident, a bus incident, and it really had nothing to do with anything. It was just more paid propaganda, I would say.
What do you mean a bus? I
Yeah.
don't know what the incident was.
So my kids ride the bus. And so my kids go to Red Deer Catholic. And so my kids ride the bus. And so one morning, there was somebody who had a sign with my name on it. And my youngest son was on the bus and my daughter. And so they're a little bit different. Like my daughter's like, I'm going to go kick some butt. And my
I've
son,
met her. It's true.
she's spicy.
She's
And so
Very spicy.
very spicy.
yeah.
And my youngest son he's a protector. He wants to make sure I'm okay. And right away, so he goes and he sees the sign and he's like, oh no. And so by that time, the RCMP had been called down to the situation because there was people, right? This was a protester at a school, which is not allowed. And I asked my daughter, I'm like, what did this person look like? And she explained that he definitely looked homeless. Like he'd definitely been promised breakfast if he held this sign, kind of a thing. Yeah, did not have children there, didn't have children in the school. Like it was definitely planned. And so these planned things happened. And so from there, I'm like, oh my gosh, like terrorizing my kids, threats because people don't understand. But then, going down the road, I'm like, well, these threats, these things happening, they were all very planned. And you don't really realize that when you're in the middle of it. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I can't go out. I don't want to see people. I don't want to do anything. Just like, get me out of here. And I mean, when you become a trustee, you don't think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to get a lawyer.
Right, well, because trustee is like, it's a small branch of local government. Like
Yeah.
you're not running for like mayor, or you're not running for
Right.
MLA or MP or anything. For our American audience,
Yeah.
that's what.
We're
what's
like the
equivalent?
lowest
You don't
level.
even know.
No, it's like
State
Mayor,
government,
senator,
senator,
yeah, congressman.
Congress. There you go.
Yeah.
You
School,
know,
like,
yeah.
but
Translation.
the U.S. has school boards.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
'cause they
sure.
do.
Yeah, because they've had a lot of fun lately too.
Mhm.
Okay. But it's like, so it's
They
it's
have.
relatively speaking a smaller thing, and you didn't expect that you would nationally blow up and be so well known.
No,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm very comfortable just being at home and not seen. That's
Mhm.
been, right? That's what I've lived. And so I don't like to go to the grocery store and be recognized, and I don't like to go to functions and be recognized. That was not my intention at all.
Mhm.
All I wanted to do was I wanted to be involved in my kids' education.
Mhm.
And so being a trustee, it's about policy and it's about money. That's what it's about within the government. And so, and hearing from the people that voted you in. So that's the people that I'm serving. That's who I'm, leaning on. And that's who I thought I was representing. But the people who voted me in had no say in taking me out,
Mhm.
which
Right.
is interesting how an elected official can just be
Booted out.
completely taken out by its own board. Like
Mhm.
it's really bizarre. So,
So
um,
we walked through that for a few years. What other kind of trials were there, if any?
so yeah, like even finding a lawyer. I'm like, how do you find a lawyer? I've got to find a lawyer that understands my thoughts and my heart. And so I So I've called a few lawyers and they're like, we're not touching you with a 10-foot pole. Like, don't call us again. And they were very clear. They don't want anything to do with what's going on. And so I knew there was a deadline I needed a lawyer. And I just said, Lord, you got me into this. I need a lawyer by 5 o'clock. By 5 o'clock, my lawyer had called me and said, I saw your story. Please let me take you on and don't talk to anybody. Cool. I'm like, okay, who are you? And he said, well, I represent Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander was the student in Ontario who stood up against the gender ideology in his school, and he was completely canceled as well. And they took him to court, told him he couldn't go to the school there, and took his rights away for being educated, basically, right? And so, yeah, James Kitchen, he called me and he's like, thank goodness you have not apologized. I'm like, I'm not sorry. I mean, it is true what I said. And this is the big thing. Everybody wants me to apologize. The board wants me to apologize. The public wanted me to apologize, or some of the public not.
Sure. And that would have taken all of this pressure off of you too, right? If
it
you
would have.
just apologized.
Yeah. All they wanted me to do is say sorry. Sorry for telling the truth.
How un-Canadian of you not to say sorry.
I know.
Well done. That's good.
I know.
That's really good.
I think I would love to chat about the tension of that, though, because I noticed how there is this prevailing subtle message of, well, if you love Jesus, then you shouldn't be afraid to say you're sorry for sharing the truth. So what has that tension been like for you?
Yeah, that was, I mean, even just thinking back to that initial, like, I've got my board sitting there waiting for me to apologize to them. And when I say I'm not, it just like, that's it. We're going forward with all of it. And to not bend at that moment was intense. And even now, like, there still are legal situations where the expectation is that I will look back and say, oh, I was wrong, and apologize. And it has been something that has been more than just words. It's been internal. Do not apologize. You are not wrong. And yeah, I can't apologize for something that God, I don't want to say he put me up to it, but like it was the strength behind it all.
Well, and there's belief behind it too for you. Like you don't want to apologize because you're actually not sorry, because you actually believe that there is an agenda being forced on children.
Right.
Regardless, it's an agenda, and it wasn't a healthy agenda being put on kids that helps build them up in their character or nature or anything like that. It doesn't help nurture them toward something that is beneficial for them.
Right.
It is forcing, just the way that it's being done is forcing an ideology that can lead to destruction for them.
Yeah, and it's not even about knowing God or not knowing God. It's forcing something on kids that they have. Their kids are sponges. They'll just drink up whatever you give them and tell them. And so how can you do that to little kids? And I really struggle. I still struggle with that. And, you know, like I want kids to walk out their journey with God in life, whether they know him or not. He still has plans, whether you know him or not. And, you know, I know that when I see the confusion, you know it's not God. And it's just, and for people to stand up and say, you know, this is the truth. I'm not going to bend. And I don't know, I'm not like other, politicians, right? Money doesn't speak to me as a trustee. Money doesn't speak because it's not a lot of money. I didn't go in it for the money. So it's cost me more standing, right? So I don't have a job that I'm protecting. This isn't a job. I was put there because, you know, I said yes to God.
But with this whole overarching conversation, one of the things that we talk about quite often is the kingdom and what it means to be part of God's kingdom. But Jesus talked about another type of leaven, or two of them. He said, beware of the leaven of Herod and Pharisees. Leaven is like yeast, right? And so little yeast works its way through the dough and ruins the whole batch. And so the leaven of Herod and Pharisees is the religious and political spirit. And that's what those things are. And you went toe to toe with those for a good number of years. But the leaven of the kingdom is peace, joy, and righteousness. Like that's the fruit. That's what it yields. Scripture.
And by righteousness, you mean right alignment.
Right alignment in who you're originally designed to be. And so when we're talking about this, we're talking about more about governing and about the kingdom of God producing peace and joy and right alignment for people. Then we're talking about the religious and political spirit, which seek to divide people into two camps, cause division, cause stress, cause tension. And that's not God's kingdom at all. And so you're like, I won't apologize, because then I'm entering into both of these camps, and I'm going to stay here, rooted in God's kingdom in peace. But that was really hard fought for you to remain there and even come back to that. I'll say a little bit, just because it seems like that's been part of the journey that we've walked through with you. Yeah. And so, do you have any other questions about what you wrestled with?
Maybe what I'm feeling in my heart is perhaps a clarification statement in regards to what you stood for in truth and people's journeys. What I'm hearing is you're not condemning people who are on those journeys discovering who God is in the midst of it. Like there's not, because I think I hear messages like this, and I generally hear an undertone of right and wrong, and it's laced with shame, like shame on you for believing this ideology or being on that journey. But I don't hear shame and condemnation in what you're sharing. I hear peace and right alignment and calling people into the fullness of who they are, but I don't hear the condemnation of those on journey, which is what I think was the undertone in the press that they tried to give it, is you're condemning not just the ideology that's being pushed on children, but the journey that people are in discovering how loved they are as a son or daughter. And so I just wanted to clarify and give you a moment to share your heart on that, because I think those two things get muddled with the religious and the political spirit. And I don't hear the muddling in how you communicate, but I want to give you a moment to just share on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is life. This is, and even kingdom. People are always asking me, oh, you must have lost so much sleep over, going through this. I'm like, actually, I have lost zero amount of sleep. I get a lot of sleep, and this does not keep me up at night. And so even just thinking about saying that, I'm like, well, it just kind of confirms that this is kingdom. And like it's not who am I to say whether you should follow God or you should not, or if you are, if you're not, or what you believe is or isn't. I just want you to be, just to have the peace, right? I want you to have the peace and the love that God is actually giving you, and that's coming from kingdom, right? And that's what I want for these people. We're all on a journey. We all come from somewhere different. Yeah. And who am I to say, you should or you shouldn't? That's between you and Jesus. And that's where I leave it. This is between you and Jesus. Now, when we talk about little children, so this is the parents' realm, right? Parents are the primary educators. They're the primary caregivers for children. So teachers, people, we have no right to speak that agenda into their life. That stays at home with the parents. Yep. And, that's up to the parent, right? That's God gave these parents children, and that's up to them and their relationship with Jesus. And this is about peace and love, and just, walking through life with loving eyes. Like, you've got to see people through the lens of Jesus, so that you can see, what they're going through, or just to be able to love on them, right? And you know what? And that's a big word, love. Like, what does love mean? That's huge, because love doesn't mean sometimes just the I can't remember how they put it, but it's like a compassion. It's like a twisted compassion. That's not love. And so when we get into that realm, but yeah, I just want people to, I want them to be aligned with their call, their life, their journey with God. And that's not for me to look at and say you're right or wrong.
Yep.
So what love is, scripturally, is 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it holds no record of wrong, it endures all things. Like this, that scripture that we read in weddings usually, but that word for love is actually agape, and it means God love. So that's the nature and character of who God is. And so, okay.
I think it's been enmeshed now, the word love with the word tolerance. Tolerance is patient. Tolerance is kind.
And I would even say giving overemphasis to how you're feeling. If I grew identity, this is actually a lot of the identity work we do is around the lies or mindset that people have around how they're feeling. Because their feelings are a good barometer. They're an excellent servant, but a terrible master. And so when you let your feelings be a master in your life, it leads you down paths of destruction. And how many people have we heard of the opposite side of the story of what you posted, where they have been about that agenda and then they came out of it? And I'm talking about both of the agendas you talked about. Like, you hear people from World War II and the Nazi Party that were like, I didn't want to agree with this, but I was forced to, and I really regret that decision. Okay, so you're
and they
saying
talk
that
about like the ache they would feel in their heart knowing it was misaligned.
Yeah.
And they knew it, but they didn't know how to, I don't know, say the truth in love.
Right. And so at the end of the day, when we want to look at who God is, I have no problem with how people feel, but it's like, are they attaching themselves to love? Like, is there peace? Is there patience? Is there kindness? Is there goodness? You know? Or is there joy? And I'm talking about true joy, not feeling happy for a fleeting moment, but joy that sustains you, peace that sustains you. And I don't see the fruit of that. Again, that's not up for me to decide, but what you're saying, it is up to the parents to decide, not to a teacher or an institution or a government to decide.
Right.
Which is, really bringing it back to the value of family.
Yes.
And how we're building a culture of family in governance as a whole, which really our country is founded on.
Yeah.
And so does that clarify things? Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you met your barn cats. And tell us what has transpired since we've been barn cats, been brought into house cats.
Yes.
Just some of the cool stuff that is revealed since Intercession, and just the narrative that's changed and all of that.
Yeah. Well, starting out, I mean, I really couldn't trust anybody.
She did not trust us.
They were just classified as barn cats because, well, I grew up on a farm. So what the term barn cats means is that
We're gonna die soon, and she doesn't care.
Yeah, I don't want to
Having
get
lived on
too
a farm for
attached
the last
to you
3
because
years.
you're not gonna make it out of that tractor tire alive,
We've been through about a dozen cats at the farm.
At least.
right?
Yeah, you learn about the life cycle. It's good for our kids. They're like, oh,
Right.
yeah,
I know.
claws
I
isn't
know.
here anymore.
And they
Okay,
attached less and less the more cats that come.
Yeah,
It's true.
I know.
Yeah.
So that's barn cats. So, but then when
So you were emotionally detached from us from the start.
I was.
That's good.
I was
Thanks for clarifying that.
completely
Closed
detached.
off.
And so when Greg and Angela, they said, "Oh, would you like a coaching call?" I'm like, "A coaching call?" I'm like, "Oh, this sounds entertaining."
Oh.
She didn't want
And
us.
I'm like, I wonder what these two little kitty cats have to offer. And I had no idea what I was getting into. And so I had a few calls with them. I'm like, wow, like maybe they can move inside and become Siamese cats because they're kind of like They're cool cats now.
Cool cats.
And they're going to
cats.
live and they can stay.
They're gonna live.
I'll feed them once in a while too.
Only cheesecake.
Only
That's
cheesecake.
Monique's
Yeah.
favorite thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So initially on those coaching calls, what did you expect versus what did you experience? Tell me about that. That's
So
interesting.
I expected them to tell me what was wrong with me. And
nice.
Classic.
I didn't know you expected. This is new for me. Cool.
Well, and I expected for them to point out all the areas of my life that need to be redone and to, you need to spend more time with Jesus. You need to read your Bible more. The typical
Christian best practices?
Christian best practices. Yeah. And
you need a better watering system, right?
yeah.
Like, so to get the fruit, you need a better watering system.
Yes.
You just be better.
Do better.
Do better. And then you'll be better.
Also, shame on
Right.
you for not doing better.
Shame on you for
Being
not doing
better.
better.
Right.
That was what you were expecting.
Whew.
Yeah.
Not what you experienced.
That's not what I experienced.
What did you experience?
What I experienced was when I got on the call, I'm like, oh, this is light. I'm like, it felt lighter. And well, so I'm coming from Christian best practices for praying. And I'm like, this is going to be painful because they want to pray. I'm like, like
That's
all
how I
the-
felt
Isn't that
about
how
prayer.
most people feel about
4
prayer?
hours.
the heavy, like,
Dear Lord.
am I going to hear weird noises and like the groaning
Oh,
and the
you're
moaning?
being charismatic, like,
Right?
We were going to meow.
Yeah, like me.
We were gonna.
The Siamese meowing is really intense. So
It's the groaning,
Groaning
of
of
the
the
intercession. Yeah, the Romans
Yeah.
8. That's where that comes from. The
Yeah.
Siamese cat. Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
so I think it was
That's awesome.
yeah, and so I got on the call and I'm like, okay, I could probably do this again. It was they wanted to talk, they wanted to learn about my story, and then they wanted to know what Jesus had to say. And there was I think it might have been with Angela, the return to Jesus bag.
I love
And-
the return to Jesus bag story.
What we found with our dynamic is when you've been with Angela, you guys have done a lot of intercession,
yeah.
and that's yielded really cool results externally, which we're excited to share about. And then you and I, when we work together with our intercessors, we do more internal heart work and that
Yeah.
coaching. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
and
has also been fun.
But let's go to me first.
Go to Angela first.
No, you were talking about me first.
Well-
and the return to Jesus
No,
bag.
it was really cool. So you guys were doing intercession
yeah.
with our
and-
team.
Yeah, with the team. And I don't even know what the question was or what happened other than, the Lord showed me. He just said, put all your files into the return to Jesus bag. And I'm like, put all my files. And he was talking about all of the code of conduct, like all of it, and not just files. He wanted specific files. So we put them all in the bag, the return to Jesus bag, and we sent it to Jesus. And that's when we started seeing all of the things start to happen.
It was like pretty quick turnaround.
It was like,
Yeah.
and this is the first time I understood the well exchange.
Oh, thank you.
I'm like,
Why don't you define it for us?
I'm like, the well exchange. And I heard the word exchange. And so Angela said, so I gave Jesus the bag. And she said, okay, so what do you want in return? I'm like, what do I want in return? What do you mean? And that's when I understood the well exchange. I'm like, oh,
It's like we're
so
doing
I
a
give-
transaction or something.
yeah, I give Jesus all the stuff he wants, and then he wants to know what I want. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I mean, it's been there the whole time, but I'm like, exchange, right. And so I specifically for the files, I remember I wanted recompense. I wanted my like all the defamation that happened. I wanted that dealt with. And I think there was one more thing, but probably a week after that call is when it started to happen.
Mm-hmm.
CBC, who had covered the story initially, they came out with an article stating that the journalist who covered the story was biased because he was outwardly anti-Catholic and outwardly gay. And so he had covered the story in that light.
So the CBC,
Yeah.
which
Liberal
is
media.
very liberal media,
Semi-controlled the government.
funded by the government,
Yes.
came out and said they were biased.
Yes.
They
for how
said they were wrong.
Wrong for how they
Yes.
treated you.
That's right. How the story was covered and what they said about me, they said that it was wrong.
1 week after we did the intercession.
And yeah, my lawyer is like, what is going on? This never happens, you know?
And then a week later,
Yeah.
what happened? You got another. There was another article, right?
So yeah, there was, okay, are we at the point where
I think there was 2 articles. Wasn't
there
there?
was several articles.
Really?
So yeah,
I
so
didn't
the
know there were more.
CBC, the mainstream media covered that. And then the Western Standard, which is a more right side media, they covered it, and you know, it kind of started the talk. And then there was, I don't know if we're at the part where we have the
Sure, whatever. It doesn't matter. We'll
government-
Tarantino it. We'll just jump all over the story and then put a nice bow on it at the end.
Yeah, no
right.
doubt. I'm
Sounds
like-
good.
I'm like, I know there's been so much I should have, because I think there was 3 things, but yeah. So then after one of our sessions with Greg and Angela, so then out of the blue, and I didn't send anything in, I didn't write anybody, I didn't ask for anything, but the UCP government, who is the government who is in control right now of Alberta, the United Conservative Party, they decided to amend the Education Act,
They
which
changed the law, guys.
Yeah.
They,
Which-
out of the blue,
you
just so happened to change the law.
and you can't just change the Education Act. That is a lot of work and a lot of things that I don't even know how that happened. So they changed, they amended Section 51, which is in regards to trustees. So they amended it to say that a trustee cannot disqualify another trustee.
So
that means your own
basically,
board can't kick you out.
That's right.
what happened to you, it can't happen.
It can't
anywhere
happen
else.
to anybody else.
So as a repercussion of you choosing to post and then probably have something to do with the intercession as well,
Yes.
the law was changed so that corruption was uprooted and it can't happen to other people.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's a big deal.
That is huge.
What?
So
But you're not bitter. Like, you weren't bitterly trying to change the law, and you weren't militantly trying to change
no.
the law. Like, your heart
Yeah.
posture was, and I remember we walked through a lot of forgiveness for everything that
Yes.
happened. It
Yeah.
wasn't just like
Yeah, we did.
oh, this was great, everything that happened. You're just like, this sucked, and counted the cost. And you can go to our Freedom Through Forgiveness course to figure out what counting the cost is. But I mean, it was like sessions of counting the cost,
Yeah.
and I thought I was done with this, and another thing would come up, and really getting your heart aligned into the place where just your alignment and the purity of your heart shifted the news cycle, shifted a government policy. And I think at that point you were wrestling with, like, do I run? Do I not run?
Yeah.
And then it was like the moment you decided, yeah, I'm going to actually say yes to what God's called me to do. It was like the policy changed, I think, the week or 2 after. And you're like, oh, look at this. Just out of the blue. It's like, and this is what we mean when you're coming into right alignment. That's a fruit of the kingdom: peace, enjoyment, and right alignment in relationships. It's like you're in right alignment with God. You're in right alignment with where he's calling you to be relationally. And it actually shifts the culture without having to be, I always see like a lot of the freedom movement very militant, like this fist, like we have to fight. And there's an angst and a press, and there's a lot of bitterness and unforgiveness underneath it. But when we're in forgiveness, when we're in love, it actually shifts a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
And you've been experiencing that.
Yeah. And I mean, I get invited to a lot of political events now, and I'm asked to speak as well. But lately, you can just, so what happens is I'll go somewhere and I'm just immediately annoyed. And that is because of what is happening there and the anger there and the political, religious spirit there. And I'm just like, this is not what I want to be involved in. Even like I've turned down events where they've wanted me to speak. Everybody enjoys a puppet. And so that's the next thing dealing with. They want me for a puppet because I might look like a lamb, but they don't realize the lion that's here.
I've met the lion.
It's like,
Nice.
yeah.
And so
But you're not, I'm not like, you're not ripping people's heads off and eating
no,
that, but the ferociousness in which you stand for kingdom truth
Yes.
is very there, and you're
Yes.
unwilling to compromise.
that's
on
right.
that.
That's right. That's what I mean by lion. It's not aggressive or anger. It's Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And like it's been a journey for sure. And to be able to go and not, so I like to encourage people. I don't like to get up and I don't even know what it's, I just have this picture of like Lenin, like the ruler of Russia, right? Lenin in his beret but that's what they do, right? They go and they're like, let's fight. And I'm like, that's not how I fight.
Yeah.
So, and I've forgiven. I've forgiven people that maybe they probably haven't forgiven me for however I've offended them in their mind or their heart. But like I've forgiven people along the way, and it definitely, like, it's very straightforward for me, and I feel like when you go into something with anger, right, you're only going to come out inspiring more anger. And so these people that are going for freedom in anger, in misalignment, you're only going to get that at the end of all of it. And you're going to be in the same place, if not a worse place. And so I have been able to discern that, and I don't go to these things and talk and encourage that. I'm constantly encouraging alignment and, who are you and what has God called you to do? And like where's your heart posture at? What's going on in your heart? Yeah.
It reminds me similar to how Jesus approached things, because everyone expected Jesus to come in as the Messiah. So they didn't expect Jesus was the Messiah, but they expected the Messiah to come in and uproot all of the government oppression, because they were facing significant oppression in those days. So it wasn't just religious or political. It was political times two, because you had the Roman government, then you had the Jewish government, which was Herod. Okay, so you had Pontius Pilate, Roman government, Herod, Jewish government, and then you had the Pharisees, which was the religious oligarchy that was, all three of those were taxing the people, by the way. So they were like significantly taxed. I think up to 90% tax.
Wow.
Which is just incredible corruption, right? So people were having to sell land and like children to live. Like that's how bad it was at the time of Jesus. It was commonplace. Really, really corrupt. And the Romans weren't necessarily known for their gentle nature. Jesus was crucified, but that was common practice again for criminals and for people who would rebel. And so a Jewish Messiah would be someone who, there was other people who claimed to be the Messiah who led rebellions. And there was times, I think, when Jesus was around the age of 12, they had 2,000 militia try to rebel against Rome. They crucified all of them. And they made everyone in that region walk through and watch and look at that, just to say, this is what your rebellion looks like. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
And historically verifiable, by the way.
So there was this expectation
there's this
that
expectation, we're going to conquer,
Jesus
take
would be
over.
militant in his takeover.
But 2,000 years ago, his idea of a kingdom that would sustain time was peace, joy, and right alignment. It was an internal kingdom that bleeds out. And it's not that we don't take a stand and get involved with local government, but it's that when we operate from that kingdom, we can actually make tangible, real change. And what I've found is most Christians have believed the false doctrine of the separation of church and state. It's not in the Bible.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even the original intent of the founding fathers of America. That wasn't what they were talking about. They were saying, listen, we saw in Europe the overreach of the church into government, and that's not their job. But so we want to make sure these things are separated. But the founding fathers in the States, the 13 original colonies, they were founded on Christian ideology. Like, that's what the culture was based off of, was Christian ideology for that to be sustained. And so that's why you see some degradation in the States, and especially in Canada. For, I believe a lot of people like yourself who are God-fearing people, who love Jesus, who are kind and compassionate, are called to take a stand even in their local government, but they choose not to because, oh no, that's evil. I don't want to get involved in that soup. And as a result, we created a vacuum of people who were called in righteousness to make a stand, and people fill that void and influence culture for the worse, for things that don't stand for truth and love. Where we are now at a place of probably being overtaxed because the church hasn't stepped up. Like that's like over the last 100 years, like the church is meant to be the mercy ministries and taking care of the widows and orphans and the sick. That's the church's job, but now it's the government's job because the church said, let's just take care of ourselves. Let's just focus internally. Let's not get involved in politics. Let's not get involved in the culture around us. And that absence has led to what we see today, what we're so frustrated by, where we want to cause, let's rebel, let's separate. And that's not the solution. The solution is get involved, infiltrate, and remediate culture for the better, for love, because you shouldn't have a kangaroo court in small local government where they can fire you because they don't like something you said. That's not actually kind or loving or just.
Right.
That's not okay, because you were elected by the people to represent the people, which I would say probably Red Deer regionally would have supported that. They're more conservative. There's a lot of cowboys. A lot of conservative people, not solely, but largely. So that's what I'm seeing. So now Monique's saying, hey, this is hard, but I chose to make a stand. And as a result, is now shifting provincial governmental policy. Was nationally shown that it was wrong what happened to her. And now, what does this look like moving forward for you? So we've done some coaching, some hard work, some asking Jesus hard questions. And where is this leading for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, even in what you're saying, when we look at government and church, the government is actually reflective of the church's state right now. And so when we have people in the church saying it's the government's fault, it's actually not. It's the government is just reflecting what the church is doing or not doing or has abdicated. And so that's why we have corruption. And so where am I going? And well, through this, because it was nationally, like I have met trustees across the nation who have walked through very similar circumstances. And so it's encouraging them, supporting them, and just kind of, I don't know, like, do you need my lawyer? Like that. So my lawyer's gotten a few cases because people are like, how did you get through this? Like simple things like that. But we are coming up to municipal elections again. They are October 2025. And so we have people who need to step up and say yes to what God has called them to do without fear. And I mean, hey, it might be scary, but there's something called courage. And you know what? Just Joshua 1:9, like it's all about courage. And you need to hang on to something like that if you need courage. God will give you the courage. But yeah, like, so stepping up. And so I've, because of the position I'm in with being a trustee and having that experience, I have people who are asking for my help to get them going, to get them running, to point them in the right direction for campaigning and all that sort of stuff. And just really sort of leaning on, well, how did you get through it? And, like, how come you don't hate everybody? How come you're like, why would you even think of being involved in politics after this? Like, and it's just showing them that no, like it, you can look at this two ways, like, oh, the enemy attacked me, blah, blah, blah. Right. Or you can take this and go, you know what? I actually was out of alignment. And so now I know how to get my heart aligned with what God's doing and with what heaven's doing, and to learn how to govern from where I am and in this position, to learn how to govern from a elected seat per se. And so that's what Greg and Angela have helped me see and step into. Even this last little bit, the last story that's happened, we had another
What's happened recently?
legal issue, and we're all getting prepared that this is going to be like a 10-year battle, and because everybody has their scary stories, it's just like birthing. It's like everybody has their scary birthing story they want to share with you, and it's the same kind of thing.
Like, keep those away from me.
Yeah, like just be quiet, right? And so same thing when, this legal matter that came up. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to practice what I've been doing. And I'm just like, Jesus, what are you doing here? And how can I participate with you?
What a great question.
I know.
Where'd you get that from?
It was awesome. And so it's like 5 minutes with talking with Jesus, and it was all done. So we go into this legal matter. And
we're being ambiguous on purpose, by the way,
we are.
because we're not allowed to talk about it more than ambiguity lands.
Yes, so I'm not allowed to refer to it, so I guess I won't.
It's
So
a
I'll just
legal issue.
tell the story a little bit. But yeah, so one of the things that I have gone, like one of the important, and you can ask my kids and my husband. So words are important. Words carry power, and I have said that for years, and I say it to my husband a lot because he's a weather talker, right? He likes to talk about the weather all the time, about how terrible it is, and we're gonna have the bad storm, and that looks like hail in the clouds. I'm like, why don't you go tell it what it is instead of telling it what it shouldn't be? Because your words have power.
To be fair, he's a farmer.
He is a
So,
farmer.
like, weather's semi-important to his job.
It is.
So Monique's trying to help him, like, govern the weather and stuff.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we met, was over weather, because he's
so
talking about hail and crops. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, tell it to get lost. So he's like, tell the wet, and then we need to get to know each other. You just told the hail to get lost, and it didn't hail my crops out. So anyways, back to the legal matter. So the legal matter was, they told us what they wanted, and that was it. It was about words and power. And I'm just like, that's crazy that the enemy, and I mean, I'm sure it was the enemy. So God will take what the enemy meant for evil and use it for good. And so God actually used the enemy to declare his promises, right?
that words have power.
Words have power.
That's all you had to agree to, was to admit that words have power.
And
Your mantra.
absolutely.
Well,
And-
and the organization that we met through called Shift,
Yeah.
they wanted to do some intercession for you, and I just texted you. I was like, hey, do you want us to pray for you? We're all together right now. Except you were away in Red Deer, and most everyone else is in the Edmonton area. And you're like, no, I'm good. I did the intercession. It took 5 minutes. It took 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so how often do we have an intercession assignment where we're just carrying around a load for days and weeks and months, and it takes 5 minutes? It's like that chore around the house. You're like, I gotta fix that hole in the wall, and it's gonna take forever, and it takes 20 minutes. You're like, Or I like to compare it to this. It's like you're spiritually constipated.
Right.
And it takes 5 minutes to release the burden in the throne room, and then and then it's gone. But how often do people actually take the time to do that? and there's like, no, I'd rather just be grouchy
I
all the
think
time.
though it's because people don't know there's a better way. Because like Monique said at the beginning of our chat, she's like, I thought it was going to be one of those prayer calls, and
Yeah.
it's like this like begrudging like, oh no, I'm going to a prayer meeting and we're going to have to drum up.
I have those feelings too
Whatever.
when people invite me to a prayer
Yeah.
meeting. Angela's like, you should join these prayer meetings. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
I don't volunteer myself anymore because
Absolutely
I'd
not.
get annoyed.
Right, and
She volunteers me.
nobody wants to hear what's happening in your throne room. You know, and that's what it like.
No one
right?
wants to
You know
smell
what's
it
so
either.
funny is, because it usually does sound like that. But when we've done that together, we've done the intercession and actually walked it through, and it's so simple. It's not as stinky as you think it is.
It's way
not,
more fun.
It's
Yeah,
it's a lot
way
of fun.
It
fun.
is.
and it's super powerful because look at
Yeah.
the results it's yielded for you, like nationally and governmentally and all that kind of stuff. And so you're like, hey, I actually think I know this now. Like I think I got it. I have a ton of peace. I did the intercession, and the result of something that could have been catastrophic or like have long-term implications and cause a lot of financial strife on you
Yeah.
was like super simple, and you basically had to share your mantra.
Yeah. Right.
Oh gosh, that was hard. So it's super cool. I love
Yeah.
that.
Okay, what are you going to start? Oh,
And we're back after a pee break. So we actually just did take a little bit of a break for a minute. One of the things, actually, we'll just start with that. So one of the things that's tricky when we're chatting about this stuff is like, you said it earlier,
Mhm.
who's gonna hear this?
Yeah.
And like, what are they gonna think of me?
Yeah.
Which I think is it's a real conversation because it's like, well, I'm actually speaking to something that's political
Mhm.
in nature and volatile right now.
Yeah.
But I think there's just at least in my heart, there's a freedom to want to express this is what I believe, not in condemnation of any other person,
Right.
but of just like this is my belief system around this, and other
Yeah.
people are allowed to have different belief systems. But I think one of the things that we're talking about is infringing on children's mindsets of the world
Mhm.
earlier than they need to be, and taking away things from the family unit is the thing that is kind of the core thing we're talking. But yeah, would you share a
Yeah.
little bit more?
Well, yeah, and so I mean, coming and doing a podcast that's going to go out and that will be seen, it always like even now, like oh, kind of like who's gonna, how much am I sharing? Because these are my opinions and what God has showed me, but that doesn't mean that that's the other person's thoughts at all. And we are in a society now where it's considered thought crimes or like,
Yeah.
right? We have this going on. And so I'm still always a little bit cautious and like, who's going to see this? What are they going to pull from this that out of context or twist? Because that happens still all the time. Even going back, how can you twist listening to the Holy Spirit as something that is evil and terrible? But it was done, and it was done by people that consider themselves believers.
Mhm.
And so I'm always a little bit leery still on sharing and, how I present things and what acronyms I use and because people don't understand. I've learned that I can't expect people to understand to the degree that I might understand.
Mhm.
And so even, the LGBTQ, I am not targeting them, but I do understand, and I don't think that a lot of people understand where their agenda actually comes from.
Mhm.
That it is actually a UN agenda that has filtered down through different organizations into this group of people. And they honestly aren't aware of it. And so I have compassion for them and I have love for them because they don't actually know that they're actually being targeted
Mhm.
by the people that are saying they're supporting them.
Yeah.
And so I'm always very careful because they're looking at me with a hurt heart.
Yeah.
And I'm not coming at them at all. Everybody gets to choose how they live. And if they, they can live how they want. I can live how I want. If it doesn't mix, or if it does mix, that's fine. But yeah, like I look at these people with complete love, complete compassion. But I also understand where it's coming from. And so when it involves the kids, um, that's why I stand up, because I'm standing up not against them, not against family, their families. I'm standing up against what the UN, which is a political agenda, is trying to siphon down through them. And so people think I stand against them. I actually stand, with them, for them, because I want them to live their best life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think in most any situation like this, when there seems to be a disagreement, you actually sat down with Monique and got to know her. If you had a one-on-one conversation with her, I guarantee you would find she's very loving, kind, really cares for you as a person. And that's the thing that's so tricky in situations where we sensationalize
Mm-hmm.
perspective on one thing.
Yeah.
I guarantee you those interviewers or those people, those journalists that came out, and if they actually sat down and interviewed you,
Mm-hmm.
there'd be a lot less charged perspective of you.
Yeah.
Because we like to demonize someone rather than humanize them
Yeah.
based off of one little thing, and rather than actually focus on what does love look like in the relationship, because we actually are all Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
We care to see where the well-being of this country goes, and we actually, I think the agenda can be love. I think that's
Yeah.
what most people want to say
Yeah.
this. And so what does that actually look like if we had a conversation? I guarantee it would be a lot different than
Yeah.
polarizing and making
Yeah.
camps and
Yeah.
saying this person's right, this person's wrong, or this camp is right, this camp is wrong. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that, because
Yeah.
that's tricky, but
It
also I
is.
think it's real, and I think most people would be able to agree and identify with that.
Yeah. And, like at the end of the day, like I'm not hurt, because I understand that they're just coming at me with how they've been hurt. That's how they are, I don't know, expressing their hurt, right? Because they think that I'm a good target.
Yeah.
What's back to what we talked about even around the freedom movement, and like
Yeah.
having this whole, there's this like undercurrent of
Yeah.
rebellion in
Yeah.
it, and it's almost the same thing where that whole side was oppressed for so long that
Yes.
now we're gonna get ours, and
Yeah.
and we're gonna be in the public spot, like, and it's back and forth with that, and let's just stop with that,
Yeah.
and let's just to focus on an agenda of the betterment of people and of love, and of bringing things holistically back to where we founded this country, and where
And love does not mean giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, like when I say, I'm gonna look at Alberta with love and, even the sovereignty, that doesn't mean I'm going to lay down and be a doormat. That's not what that means. And it just means that God's way is better.
well, it doesn't mean tolerance. Because
Yeah.
if Angela was depressed at home, I wouldn't tolerate her depression. I would do everything I could
Yeah.
do to help her get whole
Yeah.
and come out of that depression to be who she is designed to be. If one of my kids was physically injured, I wouldn't tolerate their injury. I would do everything I can to see them
Yeah.
step into the fullness of their health.
Yeah.
And so
And that's what we're doing for Canada right now. We're trying to, Canada is hurt. Canada is bleeding, right? And so what am I trying to do? I want Canada to be who God, made Canada to be, to step into Canada's wholeness, to step into the truth of who Canada is, and not the hurts that people are projecting onto Canada.
Yeah. This is a little bit separate, but my experience as we've unpacked, I mean, we have friends. They're not past friends, but have friends who have, I'm like, no, they're still our friends.
maybe after this podcast, who knows?
Who have walked through their personal journey of this agenda, where there was confusion and all of these things.
Yeah.
And most of them have said back to us, I realized that their heart was drawn to something that gave their pain language. And where there was judgment in the past, it's like when they actually come into loving relationships that where there's no judgment and there's no bonding over offense, then it's like, wow, my true identity
Yeah.
emerges, and we've seen them come into the fullness of who they are without condemning the journey that they came from. Like them coming out of that journey is no different than someone coming out of a porn addiction or someone coming out of performance and
Yeah.
perfectionism. Like it's all a journey of our heart where we're wounded in some way, and we're just looking for a safe place to unpack that. But I think in this season that pain and that offense is given a voice, and then it's propelled forward in agendas. And what I hear you guarding against is that the agenda of offense and the stuff that's being pushed through the people who are genuinely figuring it out and finding a safe place, there's an agenda being pushed with it that you're standing against. Not against the people, but against the agenda.
Yeah.
And so I hear that. I hear the distinction, and just wanted to clarify that there's a distinction in that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have lots of questions. We're going to shift from the politics. Well, a little bit from
We'll
the
get back
politics.
to it later. But for
I mean,
now,
we're literally sitting with a
tell us how
government
awesome we are,
official.
Monique.
No.
Meow.
I mean, you are the first client that we've had on our podcast. So, can you describe what surprised you about working with us? Because I know we kind of talked about what you expected versus what you experienced, but what has been like a surprise or key takeaways that you've taken from sessions with us?
Yeah. Well,
she's surprised that she likes us. That's
well,
what it is.
I'm surprised that it's like, I'm surprised that you are that supportive and that real, and that you're not just doing this for yourselves. Like, that's because a lot of people that do this sort of thing, they actually do it because they need this, right? But you guys are actually like, you listen, and it's very easy, which I didn't think it was going to be easy. And I mean easy in a, like, it's not easy. It's not easy going through
your most painful areas of your life.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I mean, and the trust. I didn't think I could trust people to the degree that I could trust you. Like, I could tell you guys anything, and you would be like, you would listen. You would genuinely listen and be interested in what I was saying. And so those have been surprising. And that you still want to talk to me.
After we heard all your crap?
After you heard all
How
my
did
crap.
you say it? We were in a meeting and you're like, we've seen everyone in this room emotionally and spiritually naked.
Yeah, you were there. So we had the shift board, and then another one of our clients, Barter Pay.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have all those people on, and they're meeting together because they Shift has a franchise of Barter Pay, and so it's just a good meeting, and they were all meeting each other for the first time, and it was so weird for me because I've walked together. This is my own internal world. We're now sitting having a nice formal meeting.
Yeah.
And I was just laughing. I was like I thought that you guys all knew each other because I know all of you intimately well. I've seen you all spiritually and emotionally naked, and I was just like, this is funny. But what it did, it was actually really neat because it catalyzed the meeting. I think they leveraged a lot of trust from us because we'd walked with both of them for a long time, but there's common language of like what their hearts have been experiencing in the last year and stuff. And so it's like, oh, we kind of know you, but we don't know you, which we've experienced before spiritually with people who have walked similar journeys to us. And those are a lot of our like team members or some of our clients or just good friends. But it was neat to see the convergence of that with clients. And I was like, huh. Actually, I didn't share this even with you, but I felt like the Lord spoke to me as like, this is what it means, Greg, to be a kingdom catalyst. So to your point earlier, when you're like, that you're like, you guys, I can actually trust you, and you actually, you're not doing it for yourselves.
Yeah.
Believe me when I say, I wouldn't do this unless God was asking me to. I've tried to do many other things, and He's like, nope, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's such a joy because then we get to see the fullness of you come to the surface, and all these kind of dreams and stuff come in your heart. And so I think you're gonna have some of those questions too.
Well, yeah, it's been Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the fact, like, so all of my life, I have sort of been, let's just say the black sheep, even though I refer to it as the white sheep.
Yeah.
And it
Is that
doesn't
why you're
matter.
wearing white today?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's family or friends, whatever. I've always been, I'm just wired different. But then when I find like two cool cats like you guys and you're wired, like your wiring is very similar but you, over all of that, you understand my wiring. I'm like, what? Like you actually can understand what it is like to walk things out because you're very similar in how we're wired. And I have never found that because usually it's, things happen and crazy things happen and you say something, whether it's spiritually or not, and then the people are like, that cricket, oh, did you just say that out loud? Like, God showed you something? Like, what? So,
Have a return to Jesus back?
yeah.
What the heck?
So, yeah. So I really appreciate that. And I mean, not that it's going to be like that with everybody, but you also leave the space to understand them, right? Yeah.
So, with that, how has listening, prayer, and intercession, because those are generally what we're doing in our sessions and the coaching, impacted your leadership and decision making over the last year?
Yeah, well, I feel like leadership, and that's so broad for me because yes, I understand I'm a leader, but I don't always know what that exactly looks like. And so since we've come together, I don't have to try and lead. People are coming to me and wanting me to lead, but it's so natural because it's all of the base work has been done. And it's once you're aligned, then people want that with their walks, right? So it's helping them become aligned as well. And yeah, like I mean, just the simple thing, like I couldn't figure out why I would feel the burden, but the burden was so like chaotic of different, like if an event or something going on. And you're like, maybe it's because that is your cue to ask the question. Jesus, what are you saying here and how can I participate? And since I started doing that, it's like, it is like 100 times better. I don't have this consistent like chaos or annoyance. It's like, as soon as that happens, I know what to do. And it's just bringing that awareness and even leading, because that really filters into being a leader, because leading things, you have these burdens and it's like I would just be walk around frustrated, but now there's a solution and it's dealt with and it just frees the atmosphere. Yeah.
The leader in any situation is generally the most peaceful presence and the person who actually carries relational authority, not title.
Yeah.
And so when you're in alignment with who God's called you to be, you're at peace.
Yeah.
And so people look to you for that. And it's easy for you to lead because you're just like, I'm just being who I am. I'm not trying to lead anything. I'm not trying to be.
We're just going for coffee.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's what it's become. Leading has just become going for coffee.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that has amazing ripple effects, which are obviously impacting culture, which is super cool to think about. And it's counterintuitive because we think leadership is leadership.
Yes.
But leadership is leading.
And we think intercession is intercession.
Oh God! When God leads me to do charismatic things in intercession, like I'm only doing this because I love you.
I'm like, let's take the return to Jesus.
I love you, Jesus, and I'm gonna do it. But I don't know. Anyways,
it's so funny.
What other questions?
I actually wanted to ask Monique about that. So, I think when people first hear about the well exchange, they're like, "What the heck is the well exchange? How is intercession gonna actually impact my business?" Because I think the church hasn't done the best job of telling people what intercession is. So we use this
or integrating church into business and government.
Yeah, but we're not trying to integrate church. We're trying to
No.
integrate kingdom. But
That's
the
true,
church
fair.
hasn't done the best job of making like
Fair point.
intercession something like very practical for
Yeah.
leadership. So as a leader, as someone who's experienced a year of us doing intercession for and coaching for you personally, and then as an advisory council member to an organization, how has intercession and coaching been practical? How have you seen it actually drill down to like, wow, it's given us this types of deliverables that you have experienced?
Yeah, like, so, okay, so intercession. How has intercession gotten to the practical is
Mhm.
basically what you're asking.
And the coaching.
And the right, and the
And important too. That's okay. We'll get there later. Do the intercession first. You want to talk
You're
about
fired.
that? Yeah, I knew it.
We're never asking
Greg
you
takes
back here.
80% of our calls.
I know. I know. It's like, tell me how intercession is effective. I do intercession too. I leave that. Tell
Well,
me
no,
how
I
it's
think
amazing.
What I'm trying to say is like people get hiccups or business leaders. I just don't think it clicks for them. Like, oh, why am I
Well,
paying for intercession when the
right.
church is supposed to be doing this for me for free? Or why would I be paying for prophetic coaching
Right.
when like I should be getting this in my community for free? So just addressing like,
Yeah.
sure, it's intercession and sure, it's prophetic coaching, but there's an element here that business leaders experience that they're not experiencing in their communities, and just giving Monique space to process that.
Yeah. And so like just being a leader and even being in the political field, I guess you could say, like there is so much isolation. And that is huge. And so then when I partner with you guys, and so I've got the amazing coach and the the amazing intercessor,
Amazing.
right? Then, I feel like it's like the cloggy filter. You guys get the cloggy filter running again. And so, then I'm able to lead. I'm able to lead with um, confidence. And I'm able to, I understand, like I don't have to feel alone. And not just because I'm friends with you two, but actually it goes further than that. And so it has opened me up now so that, I'm not afraid to be friends with people or even to put myself out there, right? For people to lean on and learn from. Whereas probably before I would have just been like, I don't know what your agenda is. That's it. Sorry. As far as I can see, you're just another barn cat. So
So what we mean by cloggy filters, like any of the offenses, preconceived
Yeah.
notions, judgments, those things that clog up our filter in regards to how we interact with the world and see
Right.
others.
right.
And so getting that cleared out in the coaching and intercession side helps you see things and lead with clarity,
Yes.
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
that-
It's like,
And confidence, yeah.
yeah, it like cleans your glasses off so that you can actually see, through Jesus, right? And yeah, like it has, like it so helps if you're leading a business, if you're leading people for whatever reason, if you're thinking of stepping out politically, because all those things that are clogging your heart, all those hurts, all those things that you don't want to, whatever it is, see it, talk it, tell people, just the way that you guys, it comes out, it's not as painful and it's okay, right? Because leaders aren't supposed to have problems,
Right.
right? Right?
Fully.
And so,
Leave that one.
right,
We've seen that
that's what people think.
Yeah.
Or somebody that owns a business. If you own a business, you should understand it, know it, walk it. There should be no problems. But that's not true. And so having a place to go and like you have really actually expanded my universe, right?
Cool.
Because now I have, I know I have a clearer picture of who Jesus is really and what he's doing in my life. And my relationship is clearer with Jesus. And it makes all the other relationships clearer. So it's really, yeah, I didn't expect it. Let's just say that. So, you know,
Intercession is fun.
and intercession is
Who would've
fun.
thought?
It's like, because I'm wired more for the prophetic and the seer realm. It's like really fun. It's like, well, yay, we have an intercession call. Like, great. I can't wait to see where Jesus takes us and what we do. And then the expectation of seeing that in the natural.
Yeah.
Because now, you know, that expectation, and I'm like, oh, well, you know, it's just another prayer meeting, and what are we going to see? Like, what is this actually going to do? But no, when we intercede, we actually see things change, and we actually see, we see kingdom on earth, really. And it's real. It's not, I don't know, this makeup land.
Yeah.
This that can be, or
Well, it
that
feels
people
like
think.
it's moved from like I'm just throwing my prayers
Yeah.
out there and I'm doing intercession to like I hit the mark. Like
Yeah.
I'm hitting a dartboard and it's like, oh, I hit the target. And then it's like you hit the target and then now you're walking away with, now I can't wait to see how the target reveals itself in real life. Like
Yeah.
it's not just, ooh, this ooey wooey, God's gonna do something. My prayers are, I'm praying because it's the right thing to do. It's like
Yeah.
I'm praying with an intention and a mark, and then the mark is shifting something
Yeah.
every single time we've done intercession, which has been so fun.
Yeah. And I mean, even with that, like my legal battles are not over, but I now have confidence that Jesus is actually hearing what we're putting out there, and that it's aligned with him. And so I still have, we are appealing the judicial review, and that happens in October. And everybody's like, oh, you know, like, right? Judicial review, appealing, it never goes well. I'm like, no, this
gonna
is
go
going
well.
to go very well,
Yeah.
because I know how to shoot my arrows.
Yeah, that's pretty
So,
cool.
yeah.
Well, and just to circle back with leadership coaching, what we're doing is we're focused on you, because I'm not going to claim to be an expert in government policy or
Right.
whatever business people are a part of. That's not what I
Yeah.
specialize in. Specialize in you and your heart getting aligned with who God's
Yeah.
called you to be, unclogged,
Yeah.
and that affects every area of your life. But when you're clear and everything's functioning as God originally designed, you're just able to be who God's called you to be.
Yeah.
And that's fun. And of course, in that process, we develop a friendship because your heart's being revealed, but also like we're transparent about what we're going through too. Yeah, well, like of course, and that's just relationally true of who we are. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
It's been fun to
Well,
see.
you guys don't just teach it, you actually live it.
Try.
Right? So,
Yeah, thank
Thanks.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate that.
yeah.
Is there any other questions you
I
have?
do have a question.
Grill
because
her.
I'm not grilling her. It's just
Uh,
we get Monique in a variety of different subsects.
That's
So we
true.
get coaching Monique individually, and then Monique has had we've had the great privilege of working with Monique through an advisory council. So what has it
To a
been
board,
like
yeah.
to a board, advisory council, whatever the word is, that where you have a team of people that come together? Many organizations call it 100 different things. But what has it been like for you to experience us working with a team of people who all have different backgrounds, and the convergence of coaching, and what has that experience been like?
Yeah. It is, well, I mean, I cannot imagine what it's like to be in your shoes, first of all, as in just seeing it all in front of you. But working with you guys has been, like, you can bring all of it, all of the people with all of the opinions and all of the hurts and whatever, but be able to bring us all back to, you know, the alignment that the board is needing, looking for. And you know, but it's real. Like, you guys talk about being real, and so the board sees that you're real, and you are coaching in that area. Like, you're talking real, you're sharing real feelings, and so then the board starts to do that, which is awesome, because behind every issue, it really boils down to there's a clog or a blockage in your heart, right? Or a hurt or something. And it's just mining those out and dealing with them one at a time so that finally the board can flow and function with kingdom and God's plans. And that's been really amazing to see where we've come from the dysfunction to now. It's just like the last meeting was like, wow. And I wasn't even there in person and I could still sense it, right? To the, just how much more can you do if you are in alignment with God? And so you're so patient and you're so calm and just working with everybody to get them to that point where we're aligned as a board, not just one, but as a board with God and his plans. So, and even through that, like, it just gives everybody hope. And it really, like, you really manifest hope and encouragement to the board and to us individually. So, yeah.
Well, our process heavily relies on Jesus, so it's
Yes.
helpful
But
with
I mean,
boards if they're open to
right.
like hearing God's voice and stuff. Because it's like, oh, we will provide peace for you. It's like, no, He provides the peace. Not just
Believe me, it's been
like,
worse.
We're just gonna trigger you. That's what we're gonna do.
We're pretty good at that.
So you have experienced many boards in your time.
Yeah.
So can you just share the real difference that you've experienced where it's like fake unity and authentic unity, which we have journeyed with this board to get to authentic unity. So, but I think you have a great perspective of what inauthentic unity looks like and then genuine authenticity and unity feels like.
Yeah. So fake unity is still having to watch your back. That sense of, well, so-and-so, like, they don't look very happy today. And what are they gonna say next? Like, that's not real unity. Agreeing on a policy, that's not real unity. It definitely goes deeper than that. Unity is like coming into a room of people that you met a year ago and they're closer than family. Like, that's real unity. And knowing that, I can be who God wired me to be without being persecuted.
It's actually encouraged. And that's been one of the battles with you, is that because you've been told that you're the black sheep your whole life, you'll hold back. I'm like, you need to talk more, lady. And then when you do, everyone's like, oh, thank you. We needed to hear that. Because we want the fullness of you there. And we actually need the fullness of you to be present. Because if it's not, then we're missing a key component to seeing what we need to see to make things change.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I mean, that's been huge because my entire life, my mouth has been, like, children are seen and not heard. Like, that's how my life started,
it's not
right?
true of our home.
No.
They are heard.
Right?
A lot.
This is, well, that's good.
Yeah,
right?
it
And
is
I
good.
mean, but learning that and taking that hurt and always getting in trouble for the littlest thing, right? So now I became super aware of what I was saying. And then, of course, what's happened being a trustee. But the damage of that really hasn't been that damage. It actually opened up a space to be heard and how to be heard, I guess. So, that's really been encouraging as a board for sure.
So I should preface this. This board has a lot of opinions. Everybody has their own they're all strong personalities. They all have their own opinions. So unity isn't everyone has the same opinion.
Right.
So how would you define, okay, the board has come to a collective unified decision? Like, what does that feel like for you guys?
Yeah.
Or for you in particular?
Well, so like
everyone.
even like sense it. So, because I sense a lot. So, even, should I bring this up?
You can.
Sensing the perfect outfit.
I mean, we can always take it out.
You're talking about the perfect outfit. Yes.
So I don't know, but it's just been a way that Holy Spirit has maybe it's the feeling that he was emphasizing. I don't know, but like the perfect, comfortable outfit, like the colors all go and the fit is perfect. And you can go out for dinner and like you're not going to like bulge over the top or get squeezed. And so when you come to a decision on a board and you have all these factors and all these opinions, and even though there are opinions about what's at hand, you come to this decision and you come to this, the atmosphere is just aligned with what God's doing. And there's peace in what you're doing. There's joy still amongst everybody, and you can talk about it without getting, ruffled feathers, and there's just a unity within that, even though we're all different people. And so it's kind of interesting because even on the political boards, like they say, you're one in the room, but once you go out, you are now not a board. You function as this one entity, and which is interesting.
It's just not true.
It's not true because everybody still has their own opinions.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to have your own opinion and still have a unity. So,
well, unity is such an interesting word because it's like people always like to quote the scripture, God commands a blessing when there's unity.
How
Like,
do
well,
you
so
get to
let's
unity?
focus on unity.
Let's pray for unity.
Let's pray for unity. Let's do, no, it
You
actually
can't
doesn't. It
pray
doesn't
for
work.
unity.
Well, it doesn't work because unity is a byproduct of love. It's like in our marriage, if I was like, let's just focus on our unity.
Let's just pray for unity.
She's just thinking I'm thinking about sex, and I'm thinking she's just thinking we want to talk more, and that like it's like great. That's not love, but as we're in love, we actually become more unified as one, and that's true of the body of Christ too. When we just love each other and are able to see who is God designed this person to be, and also what are some of their faux pas, and it's like the faux pas don't bug you nearly as much, and you're just like, oh, I love you, I can see you, and then you're able to actually be unified in decisions and operation, rather than saying we're going to focus on unity. It doesn't work.
Yeah, like even the advisory board, they are they see who God has wired me to be, and so they want me to be that person, and so they are making space for that person, even though maybe I'm still learning that being that person is okay.
Yeah.
But they make it a safe place to be that person, and to be. Everybody is uniquely wired, and so, and I've never been in a space where it's been okay to be who God wired me to be. So it is all foreign to me. It is all new, but the fact that, we are expecting each of us individually on this board to be who God wired us to be.
Yeah.
And so that's, that is unique in itself.
But it's like, it's interesting how because we get to like audit how you guys come to decisions. I would say we don't really influence your decisions.
Yeah.
We're not the cabal of the group. We're not like secretly, influencing decisions and pulling strings. But what's been beautiful is I think we get to come in and create a space for all of you guys to be yourselves. And in that, conflict arises because who you guys are is meant to kind of forge out what God is doing in the midst. And so there is a wrestle, there is a tension. And at first, I would say a year ago, everyone was not okay with the tension. And now, a year later, it's been beautiful to watch everyone hold space in the tension and not rush to a decision, but just kind of wait until the decision unfolds. And that's been really cool to watch, as each of you have embraced more of who you are in wholeness. It's like Monique can offer her perspective, this person can offer their perspective, and then it's finding what's the collective perspective in the midst of it. Like,
how do you distill it?
How do you
Like
distill it?
this is what I'm seeing, this is what you're seeing, let's distill that, and then we actually have a really amazingly informed perspective.
Yeah, and finding that, because in all of us individually, there is a common thread through it all. And so it's finding that common thread, which leads us to making the better decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you have another question?
I have a segue.
Segue.
So we have enjoyed
Beautiful.
working with you so much.
Excellent segue.
Excellent segue. It's been such a joy. Honestly, like I
Yeah.
feel like when I see Monique on our calendar, I'm like, oh yes. Not that other people I feel, oh no, it's
Yes,
just like
Greg, watch the kids. I give them a call.
I just feel really excited. I'm like, oh, there's alignment, there's
Yeah.
enjoyment, there's peace. And so you've had encourage in your heart for a while.
Yeah.
So why don't you share a little bit of what encourage is and how we get to work together in it?
Yeah. So encourage has been on my heart for a while. And I mean, it's been on my heart before I even recognized it. But walking the journey that I have through the political realm, I just really felt called to encourage other elected officials. And so that's what I'm doing through Encourage. And I know Greg told me to memorize my key words, and they're
You
gone.
didn't.
She didn't do her homework.
I
It's
didn't do
okay.
my homework.
It's okay.
Just let it come from your
Yeah.
heart.
Let it come from your heart.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so what, like, one of the things that has been so impacting to me is understanding that you need to govern where you are and what God has put you into. That's the whole point. And so it's teaching other elected officials how to take their seat and how to govern from that seat, because it is governing from heaven. And to understand that, and then to give them the support they need. So whether that's intercessors, whether that's prophetic prayer, whatever that looks like, and then partnering with the Well Exchange on these, on the intercession and the leadership side of things, right, Greg? Because Greg is so
I'm
good at
important.
leadership. don't
You're
you?
important.
Because this, I mean, I look at how many other politicians are where I was, and how many politicians have been so hurt by words, because words do carry power both ways. And we're very much aware of that. And so it's like, how much better would, and even the church, like going back to the church, because the government is reflecting the church. How much hurt is in the church, in church leadership, that needs to be dealt with? And so that's what Encourage is for. It's, yes, it's coming alongside politicians and encouraging them, but I think it's for leaders, really, and it's for, whether that's ministry, whether that is business, whatever that is, that's Encourage, because you're governing from where you are, whatever mountain that is in society, whatever that looks like in your own personal life, because I think we have forgotten how to govern. So,
And what we find with most any leader, and especially political leaders, is they are alienated a lot.
I mean, you said at the beginning of the call, isolated.
oh, for
I
sure.
mean, you're like, and then I got blasted by the media and I hid in my house. And I was like, that is isolation at
Yeah.
its, I mean, it's kind of funny.
It's alienating by nature, right? But like
But
But
it
it
is.
is.
Yeah.
It is. And I mean, you can, as soon as I get on a call with somebody who is in government, I can sense it, like right now. I'm like, wow, that person is so isolated. I can hear by they're trying to put our conversation into like this cocoon that cannot be heard by anybody.
Yeah.
And, just the keywords and the hiding, you can
Yeah.
sense it right away.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at, well, we're partnering
Yeah.
with the Well Exchange and
Yeah.
Encourage to help come alongside these leaders, and we're
Yes.
starting with the political leaders to create a safe space. And I think one of the things that, just to clarify, I don't care about your government policy or the fact that you're a government official.
And we're not here to change the
I'm not
policy.
I'm not even interested in that. I care that you are aligned and that you can operate and function how God's called you to function. Like I think that's our heart is like,
Yeah.
hey, you've experienced this, that I don't have to be alone in this.
Right.
And, we have never talked about politics with you. I
No.
think ever.
No.
And because it's not what I'm interested in. My motive, honestly, is to see kingdom culture shift in society. That's my heart motivation. My motivation is not to influence policy, although policy gets influenced as a fruit of that. My motivation isn't to become more powerful or influential. That is evident of who God has designed me to be, and I don't have to try and be that.
Yeah.
I can just, my goal, and I think our goal, is to just love people, especially leaders who are alienated.
Yeah.
Because we've been there, we understand that, and we've walked many, many leaders through out of that into thriving and functioning and who they're designed to be, because they're known, and because they're able to work through those things that are scary to talk about, and come out the other side ready to impact culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even just, just aligning, getting their hearts aligned, like that's huge. And, you can only do that by loving people and by, coming alongside and journeying with them and, really tapping into what Jesus is doing.
But one of the distilled sentences that we've come up with lately is mindsets are trainable, but only Jesus can transform your heart.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
good.
we love facilitating that transaction where Jesus transforms someone's heart, and out of your heart flows every issue of life, Scripture says. And so when we're able to have Jesus touch that area, you've experienced it. Everything else just comes easily. I can lead easily now because I know who I am. I'm clear. I'm aligned. It's been really fun.
Yeah. But I think what we offer in the partnership of Encourage, because you're amazing at encouraging and making space for people. But they're like, why do you need Greg and Angela? Or like, I'm working with these barn cats. Like, who are these people? Like,
We are
they don't
Siamese now.
I know. But I remember when you first came in and you were super guarded and you were very isolated and you didn't trust. And what I've heard through this conversation is what we do really well is create a safe place for the mess to be messy without it being exposed publicly.
Yes.
Because the thing about a cloggy filter is, in order to allow that new heart, that stream of living water, in a sense, to flow out of your heart, is like all the gunk has to come out somewhere. And the thing about leadership and gunk, whatever, it's true. Like all the uncloggy stuff, like the bitterness, the judgment, the offense, the hurts, all of it. But what we're really, really good at is allowing you to be known in that and experience the love of the Father in that, so that you can come into alignment. And so what we offer is a team. It's not just Greg and I, it's our team. We offer a team of really experienced, mature people who offer and create that space in their unique way without the agenda behind it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's beautiful to come alongside you because you have a great gift of encouragement and speaking life into politicians and helping them become aligned. And we do a great part of making it safe enough for them to not be okay, but not tell everyone that they're not okay.
Right.
It's like safe for you to be in the process of whatever you're in the process with, without condemnation, judgment. Like Monique said, she's like, I expected you to, read your Bible more, do this better and all that. She's like, but then you just loved me and you made space and it was fun. And that's what
There's Jesus questions. And
we ask Jesus
you
questions.
get revelation and with him revealing to you, whether that's through some of the stuff he's revealed to us or directly, and it creates more clarity, and then that compounds, and now you're like, I want to do Encourage and all this other awesome stuff, and it's fun.
It's very exciting. So that's what you're getting when you get Encourage and the Well Exchange.
Yeah.
Both of our giftings and alignment working together.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The cool cat coaches.
Cool.
Not the barn cat
coaches.
Cool.
I don't like that catchphrase, but from you, I'll take it. Only from
Erase
you.
that.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
The last question I have, because you've chatted a lot about it and you mentioned it with Encourage, is you're talking about governing and what does governing look like from heaven's perspective versus, I think, our current understanding of what governing and government looks like. So what does it look like to internally be governing from heaven versus externally trying to make a whole bunch of stuff happen?
Yeah, and it is about peace.
Mhm.
So where you are, and it's understanding, um, that you're like hearing from Jesus. That's huge. Like the whole relationship with Jesus and understanding that it is, heaven down. It's not begging,
Yep.
right? From earth up kind of a thing. And it's understanding that Jesus is with you through the whole thing.
Mhm.
But it's governing with peace and with his love and his truth. And there's no striving. There's no like, oh, I better do a deep dive into this situation and this policy. And it's like God brings you the knowledge that you need to know at the time. And that goes against everything we've been taught about
Mhm.
governing, because the way we know governing is you deep dive, you accuse, you protest, do all these things, and you don't need you don't need Jesus for that, right? So, and I mean, this is even governing your own health.
Mhm.
Like even something as simple as that, because people think governing is only government, but it's not. It's everything.
Yep.
Governing your health. I mean, that's so simple. It's like, well, did you ask Jesus about it? Like let's
Yep.
start there. And that is the start of governing.
Mhm.
And then it goes heaven down from there.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You.
Well, thanks so much for driving up here and doing our podcast with us. And thank you for stealing my microphone and making me use the lapel. That's been awesome having you. I hope this has been a great podcast for you guys. If you'd like to connect with us, please feel free to either reach out to Monique. Guys, I'm hoping she sent this to you directly. Or reach out to us on the Well Exchange. We book a free introduction call, and then what we do is we figure out how to work together in this. Take care. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you really enjoyed this message. If anything resonated with you from today's podcast, we wanted to ask to see if you'd be willing to share it with a friend that you think would also benefit from it. We hope to see you again soon.